To the rest of Enonoch, the living world, it had been 5 days. To Masai and Anakanti, it had been a little over 50. Masai emerged from his house, and he let out a delighted sigh. When he had first emerged from the land of the dead after spending so much time there, a slight variance of perception greeted him. The air rippled around him, and colors seemed a little off, as if his spirit was readjusting to this reality. He moved to the western bank of the Va, and he waved the ferry flag posted at the pier. After a while, a ferryman drifted across the breadth of the Va to pick him up. The same man whom Masai threatened stood at the back of the vessel. His jaws were clenched tightly, and a sour glaze had fallen over his eyes. Neither he nor the ferryman said a word as they crossed back to the eastern bank of the Va. When Masai hopped off of the boat, he started walking toward his designated shrine of Anakanti. Black banners and flags hung from various buildings, each announcing a festival to Lady Death. Despite the sudden blossoming of onyx and obsidian decorations, individuals Masai passed by spoke well of the upcoming festival. More often than not, the citizens had morbid and impish curiosity rather than snide rejection. Masai's heart blazed with warmth. Soon the world would see the greatness of Anakanti's vision, creativity, and wonder. Bishop Morna was in her office, much as Masai had expected, and she gazed out through the balcony toward the Nefiri necropolis. Where once there was only the barren buildings of the tombs, a series of multicolored tents stood amidst the mud-bricked buildings. Bishop Morna chuckled and then regarded Masai.
You really did it. I woke up and looked out this morning, and there it all was. Last night there was nothing, and now...
Masai moved onto the balcony, and he leaned against the railing. Bishop Morna moved beside him.
My contacts are amazing. I hope this raises Anakanti in the eyes of the people. She deserves to be recognized.
Bishop Morna remained silent for a few seconds before she said,
The word on the street is that you made some serious enemies recently. I'd be careful if I were you, my young cleric.
Are things really that serious that I've made enemies of my own?
Oh yes, you have 3 different foes to worry about.
3? How did I acquire 3 of them?
Masai swallowed hard but kept eye contact with her. She peered down at him with a slightly condescending expression.
The first one is obvious. You think trying to elevate our goddess to the rank and status of the primary 5 would go unanswered? Ever since we announced the festival, the other orders have been scrambling to get festivals of their own organized. The good thing is they can't do it as fast as your mysterious contacts.
I expected the first. Who was the second foe?
Bishop Morna batted her eyes at him.
Why, the Vextru, of course.
What? Why are they my enemy?
They blame you for the slaughter at the Sand Rat Whore, and they want blood.
Bishop Morna grinned at him.
I'm interested in seeing how you evade their dubious intentions. They're quite dangerous.
But I wasn't specifically linked to the massacre.
The bishop let out an amused snort.
Try telling them that. We caught several thugs lingering around the temple, so we captured and interrogated them. After some delicious persuasion, we found out who they were after. We checked your hovel and found more of the scum there. That reminds me, your hovel appears as if it's never been lived in.
The bishop tilted her head and gave him a knowing expression.
I've been so busy with the festival. I've been staying over at the necropolis.
She shrugged.
That's understandable. I'm glad you weren't taken by these vagabonds.
What about the third?
The third?
You mentioned 3 enemies.
Oh, right. The third enemy is more insidious than the other 2.
Bishop Morna lowered her voice.
I told you there were traitors in our order, and I'm afraid you've gained their attention.
Masai frowned.
What does that mean? Will they watch me more closely? Or will they be out for blood?
I doubt they tried to kill you. Any attempt would reveal themselves to the other loyal clerics, and perhaps the Zur. That doesn't mean they aren't dangerous. Please be careful, Cleric Iados. You have so many great ideas on how to improve things for the Order. I'd hate to see you snuffed out so early.
I suppose the traitors could inform the 5 about my whereabouts. The 5 could try to kill me.
The bishop chortled.
Did I say something funny?
You called them the 5. You dropped the honorific primary title. I find that amusing.
There aren't 5 primary gods and goddesses. There are 6. How is death any less primary than fire, water, or wood?
Bishop Morna's softer cheeks relaxed and a serious sparkle danced in her eyes.
You don't have to convince me. As I said, you caused some significant ripples in the water, as it were. These ripples will become waves before they subside.
I'm not afraid. Let them come, and they'll see the wrath of our order.
Masai moved toward the exit.
Tonight's going to be very busy. I'm going to head over and make last-minute preparations. You don't mind, do you, Bishop?
Go on your way, young cleric. May Anakanti be with you.
Oh, she is. She always is.
Masai took rapid steps out of her office. Even in her amazing glory, Anakanti stood on the docks beside Masai, like a nervous little girl at her first dance.
I hope they like it. I really hope they like it.
She squirmed on the wooden planks, her hands flattening the front of her dress.
They'll love it. I know I do.
Masai took hold of her and gave her his best smirk.
I still can't believe you were able to create all this.
Anakanti shifted in her stance, and she even let out a little excited intake of breath when the first ferry boat came closer. Masai glanced over, and his blood ran a little colder. 3 people were at the very front of the ferry. Hikol and Joti waved their hands about, but then they noticed Anakanti. In an instant, they stopped being military men in their 20s, and they acted more like 10-year-old monkeys. They waved their hands about, and they shouted all the more. Inversely, Eaina was also on the brim of pure excitement, but when she noticed the goddess, her expression chilled. Eaina wasn't cheering, and she openly glared at Anakanti. When the boat got closer, Joti yelled out,
Hey! Who's that, little brother?
As soon as the boat touched the dock, both Joti and Hikol fought to be the first ones off. But as they grappled one another, Eaina jumped out. His little sister moved with rapid speed, and she stomped up to Anakanti. Their eyes met, and Anakanti leaned back a little. Slight concern crept on the death goddess's face. Meanwhile, Eaina balled her fists and she scowled.
Hello, I'm Eaina. I am Masai's very protective baby sister, and you are?
Anakanti straightened her back and beamed at Eaina.
It is a pleasure to meet you. Masai has told me so much about you all.
She extended her hand toward Eaina.
My name is Kanti.
She turned to regard Masai for a moment. She grinned from ear to ear.
I am Masai's fiancé.
All he could do was smile awkwardly and meet each of his siblings' gazes in turn.
Fiancé?
Masai just shrugged, winced, and let out another sort of embarrassed chuckle. While Masai had not officially asked for Anakanti's hand, since his soul was claimed by her, that was essentially the same thing as a proposal, right? Hikol punched Masai in the arm.
Way to go, little brother. Who would have thought you'd be the first to tie the knot?
She's not bad looking either, if you don't mind me saying.
Anakanti's cheeks turned a little crimson, and she bit the bottom of her lip.
By no means. I have heard you two are mischievous. Which of you is which?
I'm Joti, and this is Hikol.
It's an honor, my lady. Tell me,
Hikol took Anakanti's hand and gently kissed it.
how is it we've never heard of you, or met you before? It's customary for a family to meet the fiancé before the engagement.
My thoughts exactly. Forgive me, but how do we know you're even good enough for our brother? We love him, but Masai's judgment can sometimes be suspect.
Eaina poked Masai in the chest.
Did you know when he was a kid, he snuck over to the necropolis at night?
Oh, really? I had no idea Masai was so reckless. You have never met me because I am not from Idrakos. I came here to organize the festival. As for proving my worth...
Anakanti stepped away from Masai and grabbed Eaina's arm in her arm. She started leading Eaina up the dock, toward the entrance to the festival.
I will have to prove myself to you.
I suppose you will.
Together, Anakanti and Eaina walked away from Masai and his brothers. They started whispering to themselves. The longer they did, the less frightening Eaina appeared. Anakanti had the biggest smile on her face too. Masai couldn't help but marvel at the pair of them. Hikol smacked the back of Masai's shoulders. The joking immaturity disappeared from his voice, and for once, he sounded very responsible.
She seems wonderful, and I can see how she makes you happy. Our parents would have been proud.
Joti shook his head and walked up the docks after them.
Damn. My spies had no idea you were sneaking over here so you could see someone. Oh well. I enjoy a surprise every now and then.
Masai caught up with him.
Wait, you knew I was in the necropolis?
His middle brother glanced back at him, the glee gone from his eyes.
Yeah. Through my well-ingrained network of friends, I learned several interesting things. For one, you're the organizer of the festival, right?
Masai nodded.
The clerics from the other faiths aren't happy with you.
Joti rested his hand on the haft of his axe.
I'm not sure what they're planning, but I know they're in a frenzy trying to enact some secret agendas. I don't think it's anything violent. The last thing they want to do is start a cleric war.
If they started one, they'd lose.
More ferry boats started crossing the Va, all headed toward that dock.
Spoken like a true Iados. Still, that's not for us to say one way or the other. Tell him the other thing, Joti.
Apparently, some group called the Vextru is also aware of your presence here. They're secretive, but unlike the primary five, these thieves are out for blood. They owned and operated the Sand Rat whore.
Do you think they'll try something here?
It wasn't confirmed, but I think maybe.
Hikol wrapped an arm around Masai.
We're here to watch over you.
Masai moved up the docks toward the long line of signs leading up to the festival grounds.
I really appreciate it, but I don't want you to place yourselves in unnecessary danger. Don't forget, I'm a death cleric, and I'll rot anyone who tries to harm me.
His brothers didn't say anything. They just walked behind him. Masai sent a message with his mind.
There may be trouble from the Vextru tonight.
I anticipated as much. You are being watched by Herika and the other jackals. They will not be seen by the public unless the jackals want to be seen. Your sister is asking me a lot of questions. I like her. Enjoy your time with your brothers, but keep me posted.
I will, my love. Good luck with Eaina. She'll be exhausting.
I am a goddess. My stamina is infinite.
Then you might have enough.
Masai beheld the massive crowd following him. So many people watched him, and the momentum of the night couldn't be stopped. Although he had expected it, Masai couldn't believe the wide array of joyous smells of roast meat, fried flavors, and other delicious foods that existed. Over a dozen large food and drink stands lined the very large festival square, each with its own unique product. The festival square stretched 300 to 400 paces wide, and an elevated stage stood on the very far end of the square. 24 musicians and vocalists prepared their instruments and went through vocal exercises on the stage. A wide walkway ran between the surrounding ring of food vendors and an outer ring of vendor stalls. Masai walked with his brothers closer to the stage. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Eaina and Anakanti. This time, his sister pulled the goddess along and pointed at many of the wonders that Anakanti had created. They both had smiles on their faces, and they talked back and forth. The festival attendees flowed into the square and moved from stall to stall. Unbeknownst to them, dozens and dozens of jackals lounged around them. They sat, stood, or laid about, but they all watched the crowd intently. The citizens unconsciously moved around the jackals, not realizing they had shifted in their movement patterns for the invisible guardians. Masai climbed to the stage alone, while his brothers remained on the ground near the base of the stairs. The musicians gave him polite nods in unison. Each of the phantom musicians or stall workers had unique faces, based on the many of thousands of souls whom Anakanti judged over the years. It was quite amazing that she remembered them all, or at least could fabricate so many variations. As soon as he stood upon the stage, Masai wondered how easily it would be for someone to snipe him with an arrow. The fear lessened due to the presence of the jackals. As more people filled the square, the tension in Masai's stomach arose. He didn't fear being killed, but the thought of addressing all those people sent shivers down his spine. His role would be minimal, since tradition stated that the Cardinal opened the ceremony for any festival.
People are grumbling for it to start. What is supposed to happen?
Anakanti asked through their mental link.
The Cardinal's supposed to give the opening speech, but he's not here.
Masai's throat felt dry.
Well, can you not do it?
Traditionally, it's the Cardinal's duty.
Although he couldn't see her, he felt Anakanti's smile.
You are the one who is sleeping with the goddess. Trust me, you are much higher than him. Go ahead and address the people, my love. Tell him I told you to do it.
The anxiousness danced all the more boldly, and yet how could he deny a request from his goddess? Masai turned to the musicians and gave them a small bow.
Please start.
The musicians brought their instruments up and began playing a single note. The wind and brass instruments sounded lovely, while the drums beat loudly. In an instant, thousands of eyes fell upon him. The sheer amount of attention crushed him a little. Masai took a deep breath and then bellowed out to the masses once the musicians stopped.
Good evening. Anakanti is pleased you could join us tonight. It has been much too long since we've had a festival.
The crowd's murmurings died down, followed by silence.
For far too long, the goddess Anakanti has lingered below her rightful place in the Enonochian pantheon. The people of Ijikos have forgotten that everyone stands before her for judgment.
Masai heard the words, blasphemy and ridiculous, from the hostile crowd members.
Know this. You are now within her realm. She can see and hear everything you do. You are trapped within her attention.
All of the disgruntled side chatters stopped.
All around you, invisible jackals roam the festival grounds. They are watching you, waiting to see who is treacherous to Lady Death.
Masai waved a hand before them.
Liar! She can't see or hear us, and there aren't any jackals.
Oh yes, she can.
Masai pointed to the closest towering obelisk.
Read the spells etched into the stone. This is her realm, and she sees and hears everything. I am a cleric of the Order, and I am telling you that you are all under her gaze.
Several citizens whimpered, but most kept silent.
Worry not, my friends. Anakanti means you no ill will. She blessed all the food, the drink, all the fun to be had here. All the food is free, and all the merchandise you see is sold at a discounted rate.
The crowd gasped. Typically, the food and drink costed money to purchase, even if the festival organizers charged a reduced rate. Wide grins and applause spread throughout the masses.
While you walk the stalls, eat the food, and play the games, please honor Anakanti, the death goddess. Honor her with what she deserves, and she will honor you in return. Let the festival begin!
The musicians began to play, and the people immediately went for the food stalls. The sweet fragrance of roasted meat made Masai's mouth water, and yet he had to wait. His brothers resembled hungry wolves.
Go on. I'm a grown man. I don't need you two watching over me.
Are you sure?
Hikol leered toward one of the food vendors.
You don't mind?
Free food and drink. When are you going to come across that again?
Masai waved them off.
Go!
Joti moved away first.
We'll check on you later.
Masai watched his brothers disappear into the crowd. After a quick review of the crowd, Masai didn't see Anakanti's face. No doubt Eaina whisked her away excitedly. She could be such a child sometimes. Masai moved off of the stage and toward one of the food carts. One of the invisible jackals turned her attention onto him and then started watching the crowd again. To settle his grumbling belly, Masai got a roasted hippo leg and a large cup of beer. The meat had been marinated in something sweet, so it tasted truly wondrous. As he pulled off chunks of meat with his teeth, he allowed himself to be swept along with the crowd. At the first turn, he moved to the next avenue of stalls. These stalls sold various kinds of trinkets and souvenirs. Patrons bought things like beautiful jewelry and cups, and they marveled at their new possessions. Masai gathered mana into his mind.
Are you still well?
Yes. I really enjoy Eaina's company. I have never had a friend before. You should come and join us. We are by the games. Eaina is currently playing the embalming game, Again.
Okay, I'm on my way.
Did you send your brothers away? I am not sensing them with you anymore.
Let them go have their fun. I really hope they finally meet someone nice.
He moved through the crowds and made it to the next cross-section of paths.
Look, over your shoulder, to the woman wearing the blue headscarf.
Slowly, Masai turned around. The woman Anakanti described talked to someone at a stall and had her back facing him.
I see her. What about her?
Erica is following you because she noticed the woman doing the same thing. Be careful, my love.
Masai resumed his movements, but as he turned a corner, he glanced at the woman. She had been following him, and she turned her attention elsewhere as soon as he spotted her. He couldn't do anything about her at the moment. Was she a spy for one of the five? Or a knife for the Vextru? By the time Masai reached the games area, people screamed with delight. One of the types of games had signs that read, "Sphere of Judgment," over the stalls. The artwork in the stalls depicted dark blacks and greens and reminded Masai of the land of the dead. 3 little statues stacked on top of one another, 2 at the bottom and 1 at the top. Each of the statues looked like a tiny gray shriveled up person with a ghastly face. This little pyramid of people stood on top of a ledge over a pit full of images of tortured souls. One of the patrons had a bright yellow ball in his hand, and his friends beside him had 2 more similar balls. The man threw the ball, barely missing with 3 figures.
Send him to the pit of eternal suffering! You got 2 more! You can do it!
By the goddess I can!
The man took one of the balls and launched it at the pyramid. The top figure bounced away and fell into the pit. With unified excitement, the surrounding crowd cheered for the man to do it again. And so he did. His last ball knocked 1 more figure into the pit, while the last statue remained on top of the platform. Another patron slapped the man on the back of his shoulders.
2 out of 3 isn't bad.
The second patron gestured to the stall worker.
Set it up, I want to try.
Masai moved on to the next game. Several patrons sat in an elevated seat above large round tanks of water. The stall worker asked several questions about the afterlife, Anakanti, and funeral rites. At the end of 10 questions, the person with the most correct answers got to choose who should be dunked. When one person fell into the dunk tank, a new player replaced them. The sign above the game read, "What do you know about being dead?" Below the sign, in bold letters, it read, "Clerics of Anakanti can't play." Masai came upon the next set of games, embalming games. 2 types of embalming games existed. One of the games read, "What's inside?" and patrons would try to reach into the fake bodies to pull out prizes. They could only pull out 1 prize, and they had to feel it from the inside and decide whether or not they wanted to pull out the prize or feel around for something else. No one ever pulled out the same prize, and each person rejoiced as they saw what they won. One little boy pulled out a really nice drinking cup. A woman pulled out a bottle of oil. A man pulled out an elaborate headscarf. Masai found Anakanti standing at the second type of embalming games, a game called Wrap It Up. Masai followed her line of sight and saw Eaina playing against another patron. Both players raced against one another, wrapping up foam bodies in long strands of linen. At the moment, Eaina had a large lead over her opponent. When Anakanti saw Masai, she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek.
She is doing really well. She really enjoyed what's inside. Eaina ended up winning it multiple times. Each time she won, she whooped and hollered.
Eaina won the game she currently played and screamed out as if she had won a great battle. As soon as she saw Masai, she leapt from the stage.
Oh my goddess! I can't believe how fun that was! Is real embalming this enjoyable?
Masai shrugged.
It depends on who you ask. You have to take out people's organs and prepare them for the afterlife. A very sacred duty, and I enjoy it.
Wow. I never really thought about embalming like that before.
Eaina watched the next pair of patrons begin to wrap up the bodies.
I've always thought it was gross to handle dead bodies. You don't see it as gross? Your conviction towards service is inspiring. Maybe I should join the order too.
Anakanti's eyes lit up.
Wait. You are an acolyte?
Yeah, I was thinking about Sara the snake. But after watching Masai grow and thrive in Anakanti's temple, I'm not so sure.
At first, Eaina frowned, but then she grinned.
He always said Anakanti was undervalued. I'm starting to agree with him.
The goddess glanced over at Masai with watery eyes, but she blinked it away.
Well, you would be welcomed in the order.
Eaina visually lit up.
You think? It's one thing to have Masai to work with, but being able to be friends with you would really make being a cleric of Anakanti so much better.
Eaina switched her gaze from Anakanti to Masai.
You know what? Why not? Sara's great with her medicines and poisons, but the way you talk about being a death cleric and how sacred your duties are, I might as well share in those sacred duties.
Wait, what are you saying?
Eaina rolled her eyes.
Duh. When I'm called up, I'll tell them I want to go for Anakanti.
Masai couldn't hide his pride, but Anakanti's joy surpassed even his own. The goddess hugged Eaina in a tight embrace.
I know you will be called very soon. And by Anakanti, no doubt. I cannot wait to be friends with you.
Silly girl, we're already friends. Any girl who can capture my brother's heart has to be incredible.
She'd have to be a goddess or something.
As if. You're sweet, big brother, but not that sweet.
Eaina poked him in the chest.
You'd better treat Kanti well, or you'll have me to deal with.
Anakanti's amusement diminished for a moment. She studied something just over her shoulder, and a moment later, Masai heard her voice in his head.
There are about 15 people watching us. Herika says she and the other jackals smell ill intent on them. I want the jackals to tear them apart, but I am not accustomed to situations like this. What do you think?
Masai sent a message back.
Can they do it while they're invisible? Would anyone else be able to see the carnage?
The other patrons would get scared by what was going on. Maybe we can lure them into somewhere secluded.
Maybe we can use me as bait.
Why are you two so quiet?
What?
Eaina's brows creased.
I said you weren't sweet enough. That was a joke. I swear.
Anakanti took Eaina by the arm.
Oh no. I guess we were both thinking really hard. I know I am checking around to make sure people are having fun.
A man walked up to Masai. At first, Masai channeled his death magic into his staff, but he recognized the person.
Joyu, what are you doing here?
Masai extended his arm. Joyu took it.
Are you kidding? Do you think we would miss a party like this? By the way,
The Zur bent in a little closer so only he, Anakanti, Masai, and Eaina could hear.
do you know that you're being followed?
Followed? Followed by who?
Calm yourself.
Anakanti patted Eaina's arm.
We already know. There are about 15, maybe more.
The Zur gave her a curious stare.
You look very familiar, although I can't quite place you. Have we met before?
Anakanti shrugged.
Maybe I am of the order like you. The point is that we know there are people around us. The issue is we do not know who they are.
We know they have hostile intent.
Did the jackals tell you that?
Joyu gestured to the closest one.
The chosen of Anakanti indeed.
What jackals? I don't see any jackals.
Her eyes got wide with wonder.
You were serious about that?
Masai scanned the crowd for the woman with the blue scarf, but he didn't see her. Like Joyu, Masai spoke in whispers.
Only those with death magic can see them. Unless they want to be seen.
So what's the plan? I wouldn't mind knocking some heads together. I'm without support, but I still have my magic.
Eaina stepped in closer.
I want to help too.
Absolutely not.
Masai waved his hand to accentuate his point.
If these people mean violence, I can't risk you getting killed. You're an acolyte.
He turned his attention to Anakanti.
Can you please take Eaina somewhere safe?
The death goddess's eyes burned brightly. Each word resonated with rage.
You cannot expect me to stand by while you face this alone.
You can't afford to get involved. You have an image to uphold. I have to do this alone.
Did you not hear me? I'm helping you.
Can you risk involving your order?
Joyu's smirk returned.
Your order is my order. Besides, we're friends. Friends don't let one another go into battle alone. Is there a secluded place we can lure them?
Masai and Joyu regarded Anakanti. She threw her hands up in defeat.
You can go to the Journey of the Dead maze. It may look like a simple tent, but it is bigger on the inside. Be careful. That is my greatest work.
For a brief moment, Masai's heart trembled, but he dismissed it. How bad could it be? After all, this was Anakanti's first time creating experiences like the ones he had seen tonight. Joyu took Masai by the arm and led him away.
Don't worry, I'll keep him safe.
Anakanti gave a half smirk.
You had better, or I will split your soul in twain.
Joyu narrowed his eyes, but then they widened as large as possible. He started to say something, but Masai pulled him along. They eventually found a large green and white tent. Darkness spanned the interior. From the looks of it, no other patron had gone in yet.
Here we go.
The Zur led the way, and Masai followed. As he entered, he glanced over his shoulder. Although several walls of people blocked them, Masai saw the woman in the blue headscarf approach the tent. Blackness surrounded Masai as he moved deeper into the tent. Stale air clustered around him. He couldn't even see Joyu. The discomfort really settled in, and then the floor beneath Masai fell away.